Yo, we're fucking in.
Welcome to the Rushmore Podcast. My name's Pepper.
My name's Thomas.
This is a podcast where we take our Mount Rushmore of any given topic, and then if you listen to the podcast for more than 35 minutes approximately, you'll figure out what the fuck we do.
Yeah, I've heard a couple people say that in those like podcast groups. Like, yeah, listen to your show for like 5 minutes, still don't know what it's about.
Well, you gotta listen to 30 more minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be a fucking idiot. Listen to our podcast. Rate the fuck out of our podcast and review it.
Yeah, 5 stars only. If you go less than 5 stars, we will castrate your...
No, you don't exist to us.
Okay.
You're not real.
Yeah.
You're not real people.
You're fake.
We live in a simulation, so technically none of us are real people.
So. We have Jon Anik on this episode.
For real.
Why don't you read a review before we talk about Jon Anik?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You want a 5-star or?
Oh yeah, that's
all we got.
Yeah.
I really don't have any other ones. This one is from, good
luck.
Kaider Al-Samurai.
That word is samurai.
Al-Samurai.
Yeah.
Kaider Al-Samurai.
Yeah. Al-Samurai, he says.
Sorry.
Samurai.
I'm stupid as fuck. All right.
What did they say? What's the name of the review?
They get good eggs.
We do get good eggs.
Yeah. I like eggs.
Grass-fed.
Grass-fed?
Yeah.
Who's
we
Fred?
get Mr. Grass-fed.
It's like the opposite of Fred Flintstone is Fred Grass.
What's the reviewed say?
It says...
Reviewed? Why can't I speak? I'm adding all these extra letters.
It's been a long night, bruh.
Yeah.
Mark Danis Headstrong.
Oh, okay.
That's all I said.
Like, we get good eggs. We get Mark. We get Danis. And then we get the Headstrong guy.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And also Jon Anik. Show some goddamn respect.
Yeah, he didn't know that yet.
Well,
we got Jon fucking Anik.
If you live in a simulation, there's no excuse for not knowing what happens next.
You can find Jon Anik on Twitter at Jon_Anik. Jon has no H. It's JON_ANIK. And the same thing on Instagram, Jon_Anik. Or go listen to the Anik and Florian podcast.
If you like Jon Anik and the face of BattleBots, go check that out.
Yeah, okay. And Ray Longo. Punch a hole through his fucking chest, Longo. He does the Longo Minute every episode, which is incredible. audibletrial.com/Rushmore podcast.
Hold on. Wait, what would I do with that?
Oh, you get free books and shit.
Wait, okay.
In your ears.
So
you can listen to them.
Okay, hold on. I don't have to read books anymore?
Ever heard of the book?
Because it's 2020?
Ever heard of Cujo?
Once, yeah.
Ever heard of the book The Stand?
Okay.
Okay.
What about
who wrote them?
What about The Firm?
Yeah, by John Grisham.
Uh-huh.
That's the best-selling book in 1991. Spent 46 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list. Was the longest consecutive run in #1. John Grisham's The Firm.
I don't know why you know that, but that's the year I was born.
And you didn't think I knew that either. You thought you were just throwing The Firm at, and I have information on The Firm.
Right.
I've studied The Firm.
You're talking about Cujo and the Stand. That's got to be like...
Cujo and the Stand is a shitty band from the 70s.
That's
I'm talking
like,
about the book Cujo and the book The Stand.
Yeah, that's like William Shakespeare, right?
William Shakespeare.
Okay.
It's William Shatner and William Shakespeare mix. Get it?
Yeah, no, I got it the first time.
Definitely Stephen King.
Oh,
they're both
you're talking about
books.
The King.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hey, Stephen King, I apologize for my disrespect.
Yeah, and he reads them on audible.com. Don't get those. He's a very sleepy reader.
I
recommend you getting The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort or Life of the Party by Bert Kreischer.
What about...
great books to listen to.
What about the Bible?
You can get the Bible read by himself.
God?
John.
Oh, okay.
John Goodman.
That makes more sense.
John Goodman reads the Bible on Audible.
Hell yeah, dude.
audibletrial.com/Rushmore podcast.
That's pretty sick. What if I'm too sad to read, though?
You let me finish the ad, and then we'll get to that part.
We'll see.
audibletrial.com/Rushmore podcast. If you don't know how to spell that shit, look at the top of your app you're listening to right now, you fucking idiot. Listen to books. Oh, Pepper's sad. Better get him a counselor. BetterHelp.com.
Do I even need to be here?
BetterHelp.com/Rushmore. I need you to be there to be sad.
Okay.
To set me up. BetterHelp. That's HELP.
I'm sad for reasons that I cannot disclose.
Yeah, we'll disclose them soon if they don't get resolved. We'll disclose the shit out of them.
All right.
How will we disclose them?
I don't know, because he's such a nice guy.
I'll be like, say it on 3, and then you'll count down from 3.
Yeah.
Do it?
Right now?
Yeah, count down from 3.
No, I don't want to do it right now.
Okay.
Let's give him one more chance.
Yeah, okay. All right, you get one more chance.
I like dogs.
Captain Hook. I don't even know if that's not really a hint.
We're not okay.
No.
That's why we need.
But you know when we were okay?
When
we were talking to Jon Anik.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
He was fantastic. Paul Felder's right-hand man, his heterosexual life partner. A lot of talk in this podcast about Joe Rogan and fucking what was the guy I'm thinking of?
Kenny Florian?
No.
Daniel Cormier?
No. Mauro Ranallo.
Oh, okay.
He deserves a shout-out.
Yeah.
Go Patriots, fucking.
I think it's a
Boston,
terrible intro.
Boston sports, all that. Yeah, you got this far.
Enjoy it or not.
Or don't. Or do.
That's what I said.
Jon Anik.
That's what I said.
Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is for Rushmore Podcast. Look good, feel good, enjoy.
People said they need a theme song, so Pepper wrote this fucking theme song. And if you like this fucking theme song, then you'll like the Rushmore Podcast. Rushmore Podcast. Rushmore Podcast. Rushmore Podcast. Fuck you.
What up, Jon Anik?
What's up, boys?
Nothing much. Your audio sounds incredible.
How about that? Computer audio sounds better than the cans on Zoom.
Yeah. Is our shitty lack of curtains distracting at all?
No, it's great. All good. I see you. I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, we don't this is just audio only, the podcast. If we put out any video, it'll just be like a teaser or like a clip here and there. But the actual podcast itself will just be audio.
Cool. I like that I can see you guys regardless though.
Yeah, me too.
Just make sure we're not jerking off or anything weird.
We're not. We're absolutely not. What shirt is that? What is it? What is the 5?
It's a little outdated because Tom Brady has 6 now. It's a little TB12 down there. So when they won their 5th, I got this.
We're in Mississippi, but I'm a huge Patriots fan, and I have been my whole life.
Y'all are going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, the first thing I did write some notes down for you, John, because I'm goddamn professional over here. And the first thing that I wrote down was Patriots. So I'm glad we got to that.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, there's a lot to get to. So this is Greg Hardy country down there a little bit, no?
Is Greg Hardy down here?
Greg, he played football at Mississippi. That's
that is true.
I got you.
This is Jason Knight country down here.
Oh, Mississippi mean. I mean, now you're talking.
Oh, we're gonna bring that up later. You want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, we're also. Did you give him the nickname Mississippi Mean? Because I think he told us that on the podcast.
I did. I didn't trademark it, but I did. Yes.
Did you come up with Hig Diaz also?
No, I can't lay claim to that one. No.
Okay. Yeah, we've had him on twice, and he's from right down the road. Him and Chase Sherman both are from right down the street.
Yeah. Nice.
But we did come up with some alternative nicknames for Jason.
I love it.
That he never ended up using. We tried to get him to use these in his second Artem Lobov fight.
I mean, a couple of them are bangers too. It's really disappointing that he never used them.
Well, dude, when he brought me a Mississippi Mean T-shirt, I should see if I have it. The gesture blew me away. Obviously, because we just said it. I just said it off the cuff on a broadcast, and it stuck. And then for a fighter to make a shirt, obviously he didn't change his nickname for fighting, but it was pretty touching for me.
Yeah, he's the best, man.
Yeah, he's
such
a
nice guy too. That's one thing that's really blown me away. Now that I've met a couple of UFC fighters, they're all so nice. I haven't met one asshole yet.
Yeah, stick around. No, I'm just kidding.
No, my friend has a story. I don't think it's true, but he was telling it before John Jones was champ. I remember he was about to fight Vladimir Machusenko. Is that how you say that? You're the guy that gets all the names right. But I think he was about to fight him, and he said they linked up on like PS3 playing the UFC game.
Yeah.
And that John was just talking so much shit to him. He's 16 in fucking Pascagoula, Mississippi. He said John was just shitting all over him the whole time playing the game.
I believe it.
One of our former guests, Danish, John Jones was at the comedy store and hanging out with Ari Shaffir and I guess Joe Rogan and some other people, and walked right up to him and did a double nut tap with both of them and brought them to their knees.
That'll do it.
All right, here's some alternative nicknames for Jason that we gave him. We got Jason Nighty Night.
Because he puts people to sleep.
There you go. Okay.
Jason Nightingale, which at the time I thought was a horse. I think it's a bird.
Yeah, superb.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Jason Nightgown, because he takes your back and you wear
Yeah.
him like a nightgown. I did come up with Jon Anik at the disco.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
It's terrible, dude. Don't.
It is.
Well, hey, I mean, they have to like originate organically, you know.
Yeah.
No nonsense, Keith Peterson, you know.
Oh yeah.
It just most of them, the King of Kenosha, Ben Rothwell, any nickname I can lay claim to has originated organically, thankfully, and there haven't been too many more than that. So
That fucking parody account of Keith Peterson on Twitter.
It's incredible.
It's so good.
That's one another good thing about MMA is the comedy that springs from MMA, like Tommy Toehold and stuff like that. It is incredible.
Yeah.
I do have Paul Felder, barely knew her.
Yeah.
I have Ground Chuck Liddell.
Ground Chuck.
Oh,
Ground
see,
Chuck beef.
I mean, I got to think, is there a Chuck on the roster right now? Because if you have a ground and pound skill set and your name is fucking Chuck, you got Ground Chuck is as good a nickname. I mean, you better trademark that quickly before my marketing guy makes T-shirts and sells them, you know?
Charles Oliveira, called Charles Chuck.
That's a pretty good offering out of you. Yeah, but Ground Chuck, that is pretty brilliant, I got to tell you.
Thank you, man. What about Tyron Morning Woodley?
Yeah, well, so he had a podcast called D's Not Wood, you know.
That's probably where I got that. That's subconscious then. I stole it. I'm a thief.
But, man, you really got something with this Ground Chuck. You got me thinking. I got to go through my fighter library when we're done here. Find a Chuck in there.
I don't need too much credit. Just shout out Rushmore Podcast every time you interview him.
All right. Gotcha.
All right. We asked Paul. We had Felder on like 2 weeks ago, and we asked him a very similar question. But I want to get your take on the reverse here. Fuck, marry, kill. Paul Felder, Daniel Cormier, Joe Rogan.
He's writing notes.
Felder, Cormier, and Rogan. So I have to have sex with one of these gentlemen. Is this the game? And then
have to
kill one and well, I'm definitely not marrying DC. And you know, I would marry Rogan for more reasons than one. You know, I don't know how I would go about killing Paul Felder, but I'm not going to sit here on the airwaves and kill DC. You guys got me in a corner. But, man, this is really tricky, guys, you know. I mean, you're going to end up having me kill DC in this equation right now? Is that what we're doing? No, I mean, I guess I don't know. I got to bow out. I mean, did Paul actually say he would kill me on your air?
No, Paul actually married you.
Yeah.
See, oh, man, right. See, well, tell him I didn't kill him then. Tell him I didn't kill him. Tell him I would have fucked him, I guess. But
yeah, he fucked DC. We established DC was a power bottom.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And as for Rogan, this is the thing. He immediately chose to marry you. He was like, we could live together, spend some time. You know, that's my boy. It'd be great. He'd have to kill Rogan. But then he started thinking all the assets Rogan could give him if he married him, how he could treat him.
That'd be a very lucrative divorce for sure.
See, and I wasn't even thinking assets. I was just thinking, you know, he would help me conquer my inner bitch and work out 6.5 days a week, you know. And he's got the resources, obviously, to make that happen, you know.
He definitely chose he didn't want to marry DC because if he pissed him off, DC could fuck him up.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, see, I know DC too well to marry him or have sex with him. So
he seems like he's got some weird habits.
He's actually he's pretty level-headed, and I mean, he plays video games. You know, I think there's a lot of relatability in him. And the most naturally gifted broadcaster I've ever seen. You know,
I was listening to the DC and Helwani show Monday, and he was talking about watching reruns of the Beverly Hillbillies.
That sounds like a fun time.
He's probably the only person in America watching that show.
Well, I bet there are some hidden gems, right, in terms of television. I just have, you know, 3 kids under 9, so I don't have time to sift around.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not a play-by-play guy. That's why he's got all the time to dick around.
Yeah. You're just watching Paw Patrol over and over.
So you're gonna kill DC, marry Joe Rogan, and fuck Paul Felder?
I don't know what I'm gonna do with DC. I mean, I
don't think he can be killed, to be fair.
Yeah, he'll come back.
Right.
He's bulletproof.
All right, well, this one might be a little easier for you.
Okay.
Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized Bruce Buffer or 100 duck-sized Jimmy Smiths?
Ooh. That's a very complicated question, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want 100 of anything. I'd have to go one-on-one. But, a regular-sized Bruce Buffer would kick my ass even into his 60s right now. He's a lifelong martial artist. I put up a fight, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be misquoted, Buff, if it really comes to that. But a horse-sized Bruce Buffer, there's one of those, kick me in the teeth, knock me unconscious, 100 ducks. I don't want to deal with any of that noise.
Jimmy Smith is a pretty decorated martial artist himself, though. Even at a duck size, I think he'd give you a run for your money.
One duck? You're saying one Jimmy Smith duck?
100 Jimmy Smith ducks.
Oh, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with that. Yeah, I'm saying like 10 or 20 Jimmy Smith ducks would be a real problem. So 100, you see, I just have to try. I will tell you guys a story real quick. So I do know that one fraternity back in the day, they had to their final fraternity act was like they threw a chicken in the hole, and basically you had to figure out a way to, kill the chicken. Oh. And it wasn't my fraternity, but it made me think of that, because if I'm killing, my mind immediately went, all right, how do I kill 100 ducks? And you got to break 100 duck necks pretty much. You kick a couple off to the side, but you're trying to break necks, you guys got me going down some rabbit holes tonight.
Yeah, you could really get messed up by chicken. If it's the right chicken, if they get a really aggressive rooster, you're not coming out of that unscathed.
Yeah, right.
I've known some very mean roosters in my life.
Yeah, I believe it, man.
What I don't even really know how to get into this. I know there's certain questions I probably can't ask, but what's your favorite sport to bet on?
So, baseball is every day. So for somebody like me who likes to bet every day, I love the ebb and flow of that and being able to ding and dong, even if the sharps tell me I'm dumb for doing that. I love coming back with a team when they've lost the day before. I like betting systems in baseball. The NFL will always be king. I always will be in the super contest. And that, I think, is the best challenge for me as a sports bettor. But yeah, I mean, the NFL for sure. College football, it's a lot about leaning on the sharper minds than mine, because I'm doing UFC events those days. So oftentimes I'm looking for free plays, trying to consolidate, not have fucking 14 straight wagers on the board. But yeah, I love betting football, golf futures every now and again, baseball because it's daily. And maybe 25 years from now, if I can last that long with the UFC, I'll place an MMA bet again. But for now, that is not an option.
So you've had to cut all that out.
Boxing, MMA, I think it's all in the contract. I forget what it is, but yeah, I think boxing too.
I didn't realize that would be in the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any play-by-play guy, that's a neutral zone,
Okay, yeah, I assumed it would either be just fights you called or UFC fights. I figured you could bet on Bellator or boxing or anything like that.
Well, I don't think it's a great precedent to be making any public picks as a play-by-play guy. Right. But yeah, I mean, I suppose if I was not calling the fight, I could place a bet. The thing is, inside information, even if you have it, it isn't necessarily going to make you a winning bettor. There's so much more that goes into it, and you still don't know every circumstance. Like a lot of people thought Fabricio Verdum a couple weeks ago was pretty safe against Alexei Olenek. Olenek showed up in the shape of his life, at whatever age. So there's a lot of variables that maybe you don't account for, even if you're really close to it. So, but yeah, it's fun for me to watch it. It's fun for me to see my friends have action sprinkled all over the board when I'm calling fights.
That's kind of a bummer, because MMA is by far my favorite thing to bet on.
I'm very envious, buddy. Very envious. I can see why. I mean, because I'm an underdog bettor in football, so if you like betting underdogs, MMA is for you.
Yeah,
a Patriots fan that's an underdog bettor.
Well, I don't ever bet on the Boston teams. I am often against them, trying to purchase wins, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, thankfully the Patriots, I'm getting a lot of points when I'm against them.
Every single one.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, when I'm betting other sports, I try to stay away from totals, even though I know a lot of people who love firing on those things. But yeah, MMA is tricky, and especially when it comes to the heavyweight division, right? I think Andre Arlovski, 9 of his last 10 have gone the full 15 minutes. I did think Ngannou Rosenstrike seemed pretty obvious that was going to be a quick fight. We had a handicapper come on our podcast, and he suggested that was his best bet of the week for UFC 249.
There was plus money on that under, though, wasn't it?
I don't know where it closed, but I think, it was close to even at one point in time. But
Yeah.
I just felt like the way both of those guys were going to approach this particular challenge was such that one guy was going to fall quickly, and that's what happened.
Yeah, you should probably bet the under on every Francis fight.
Yeah.
Well, now I think it might be prohibitively priced now, but if
Yeah.
his next opponent is Stipe or DC, then or John Jones, then I guess it wouldn't be,
Yeah.
It's very interesting, everything that's going on.
Yeah, I saw where they put out that he would be the favorite over John and DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Well, and I tweeted about it, and I agree that he should be the favorite against all of these guys. It doesn't mean I think that he beats these guys, right? It's that they're trying to draw two-way action, and I am of the belief as one man, however locked in, that if Francis Ngannou is an underdog, that he will get bet into favorite territory because of what he's done since that Stipe fight, these 4 consecutive wins. So I could be wrong on that. I'm not sitting here picking him to win. People get very sensitive about that. But I do believe he deserves to be favored right now over any heavyweight. I mean, there's a Tyson type thing going on here. And I think if you're Vegas, you got to plan accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fucking terrifying.
And I mean, John Jones and DC, I mean, they give anybody on the planet problems. Like, there's nobody who's going to walk through either one of those
including
guys.
each other.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And of course, it's a silly narrative to suggest that any of those guys would be afraid of Ngannou, right? I mean, he signed on the dotted line twice to fight Anthony Rumble Johnson and choked him out twice. He's the closest point of comparison we have to Francis. So, nobody's afraid. I think there could be easier physical challenges out there, but, power to these guys. They're, first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah, you're as a play-by-play guy, you're a lot more neutral sounding about it than Paul was on the show.
Yeah,
because he was like, "Yeah, DC fucks him up round 1."
He was like, "Yeah, I talked to DC right after that," and DC was like, "I would have taken his legs so quick and put him on his ass."
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Oh no, and hey, I mean, people are like, "Man, I can't believe you're saying Ngannou would be favored over DC," and it's like, guys,
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's going to go that way regardless. The line is,
but I think a lot of these people who believe that, Stipe or DC or John, should put their money where their mouth is respectfully and play that good price if you like it, right? If you see a line and Stipe's plus money, go fucking get it.
Yeah, you should be excited.
Like that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So if Vegas and people like me have improperly priced it, if you will, then go attack the board.
Yeah, and just because you price it a certain way doesn't mean that's how you think it's going to go. I mean,
right. No, and there's a huge gap that Francis needs to close, right? But what I have seen is that he has a great manager and a great head coach in Eric Nixick and a great support system around him now. And cardiovascularly, his system has changed. You hate to make excuses for a guy when he has thoroughly dominated the way he was, but he didn't quit. He lasted 25 minutes. So I'm excited to see him back at a championship setting. He's more than earned it. And again, to your point, he is probably the most terrifying force to have ever graced those 8 walls. And, that's not promotional hyperbole. I mean, that's what I see.
Yeah, he's fucking scary. Him and Anthony Johnson both. And if he comes back at heavyweight.
Dude, I saw Anthony Johnson, I guess it was about a year ago at a bare knuckle event down here. You want to talk about fucking thick and not necessarily fat, but it looks like somebody put a bike pump on his head.
I'm telling you, he's a total force. I was sad when he walked away. I always thought he'd be a champion. And how about DC, right?
Oh.
Beating him twice like that? Because for me, and I was just asked this question recently, UFC fights that have gone away, matchups that you wish had been made and didn't materialize. John Jones, Anthony Rumble Johnson is one of the first fights you think of, a fight that was booked and didn't materialize. So maybe we see it one day.
We get Rumble and John Jones, DC and Stipe 3, and Brock Lesnar and Francis Ngannou.
I want to see Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou again.
Yeah, I'd like to see that go differently.
I want to see, yeah.
Oh, it would have to go differently. But don't hold your breath on that one.
I still kick myself for not taking the over in that fight.
I thought about it.
I know.
I mean, who would have thought?
But I just had because they always hype up a fight saying there's no way this one's gonna go all 3 rounds, and I'm like, oh, don't say it, Jon Anik.
Well, we try not to go totally crazy, right? Like when we talk about bulletproof matchmaking,
Yeah.
we're more talking about Ferguson Gaethje and Calvin
Yeah.
Kattar versus Jeremy Stevens. Put yourself out there on a fight like that. It's easier.
Yeah.
Heavyweight MMA can be tricky because it ends like that. So,
Or they get tired like that.
I mean, I'm sure the record shows that I have gone overboard plenty of times, but I do feel like I am noticeably careful with heavyweights because there are a lot of fights like that that are outliers. I mean, we've called some real stinkers at heavyweight compared to the other divisions.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, not to suck your dick too much, but I think you do an incredible job because I think play-by-play has got to be, I mean, I'm sure you know, and it's like the most selfless, hardest job in commentary. I mean, I'm sure color's not easy for anyone, but to be able to sit there and call what you see, or you know what I'm saying, you have so much more on your table than pretty much anyone else in that position.
Well, no, I appreciate it. It's always a work in progress, but I'm thankful for the job and the seat and the repetitions and all the opportunities that have been afforded me, especially when it comes to sort of calling title fights, because I was groomed, I mean, I was brought up the right way if you're talking about being a minor leaguer, right? And really learning deeply the bottom half of this roster, for lack of a better way to put it. So I feel like I was ready when I was elevated to the top job. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that's not about fighting, right? That's show formatic and a bunch of stuff that doesn't cross DC's wake or Rogan's wake. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But I love the devil I know right now. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather be doing. And that comes from a guy who dreamed of calling NFL football. But right now, you can have a real bad show and then it all comes crashing down. So
yeah, I remember when when Mike Goldberg first left, and I was just like, it's not going to be the same not having Michael.
This fucking guy,
yeah,
right?
not well. It was more. I mean, you had already been around a little, huh?
Yeah,
So, yeah. I was like, I knew who you were, but I was like, man, it's just gonna be weird not hearing Goldberg and Rogan at all the pay-per-view. It's gonna be so strange. And then but I don't even know the point. Where it's just like, oh yeah, it's fucking Jon Anik's doing it now, and it was
like 2 or 3 months later. It was like, oh yeah, Anik's cool.
Yeah,
he's got it.
I'm in. I like him. He's great.
Well, thanks. No, it was a pretty seamless transition. I've worked with a lot of different broadcast partners, and I think you find out pretty quickly whether or not you're going to have chemistry. And if you don't, you probably won't last very long if you're required to have chemistry with somebody like Joe Rogan. But I love the guy. The shows always feel bigger and more special when he's there. And probably 14, 15 different broadcasting combinations for me. And I could literally spend this entire hour singing the praises of all of those guys and their individual merits, because it's criminal that Joe Rogan has not been nominated for a sports Emmy in the US, unless I don't know that he has been as an analyst, but I'm not sure what else the guy needs to do. And yeah, thankful that he's still sticking around. My goal is to make him stick around as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now he's getting that fucking Spotify
That's
money.
what I was about to say. Maybe sign into Spotify will get him in that Emmy role.
Well, and hey, I mean, I just think for whatever reason, maybe those awards don't acknowledge MMA the way they should. Sure. I think it has maybe less to do with Joe, but he's certainly richly deserving. He probably wouldn't take it out of the box, you know.
He probably wouldn't show up to accept it.
But I do believe that maybe 1% of him would care, because I know how much he cares about his work as an analyst.
And it's still pretty fucking cool to get recognized for something like that.
Who is the next great fighter turned commentator that hasn't gotten behind the desk yet?
Gosh, I mean, there are so many guys with potential. Anthony Smith has been given opportunities on the desk. I just think he's easy on the ears and has a lot of skill and doesn't seem overwhelmed by any television moment. But, you know, repetitions really matter. And to do the show a few times really well is different than doing it hundreds of times really well, you know, because when you do 100 shows, and again, I try not to have a single bad one. But when you do 100 shows, there's maybe a little bit more wiggle room if you do have a bad one, or for whatever reason, there's a circumstance that got in the way of your preparation. But he's the first guy that comes to mind because he hasn't called fights. You know, Tyron Woodley has a lot of ability. I don't know why he hasn't been given an opportunity to call fights. Maybe he doesn't want to. But gosh, I mean, there's a wealth of people coming up. I mean, everybody approaches me and wants sort of to use me as the conduit through which they get that audition or whatever.
Sure.
But,
and that's why you're here, John. We
Yeah.
want to call UFC 250.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long line, but I mean, Felder obviously got in through Dana White's Contender Series and a great audition, and he's really flourished in the role and couldn't be happier for a really good dude. And I'm sure that, the cupboard is not bare. I'll put it to you that way.
He beat out Snoop Dogg on the Contender Series for the fucking
Rightly so.
yeah
Right.
commentary role.
I mean, I love Snoop Dogg, but come on, man.
There was some rough moments in that.
Yeah.
It was entertaining.
Yeah, you're this might sound like a backhanded compliment, but it's not. You're
That's
really
okay.
good at not saying dumb shit. Like during the broadcast, because there's been times, we all know a couple moments, but you're really good at not saying dumb shit. I don't think I can think of one time.
Well, thanks. I mean, I could certainly give you plenty of times. I do appreciate that. But here's my thing, right? Like, if I'm going to talk, when I have obviously promos and all that stuff, right, that I'm trying to get a promo in. So I might be sitting on a card and not call out a jab because my window is going to be for the promo, right? But when you have Daniel Cormier and Joe Rogan sitting to your right, you better have something pretty thoughtful and good to say, because there are two guys and not just one who are going to fill that space. When you're in a two-man booth and your broadcast partner finishes his sentence, there's nobody else there to talk. So you fill that air, or there is silence, which is good. Obviously, you guys see sometimes we lay out for 15 or 20 seconds, and that has its worth as well. But yeah, I mean, I try to stay in my lane. I've taken probably 10 jiu-jitsu classes in my life. I hated 9 of them. I hope I never have to go back. So I try to stay in my lane. I try to stick to my strengths that got me here. And, unless Dana is jonesing for me to do more technically than I'm doing, I feel like we found a pretty good balance. So I appreciate you saying that.
For sure.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier got real good at it real fucking fast, too.
Yeah.
He's the most naturally gifted broadcaster I've ever seen.
I heard Matt Serra tell a pretty hilarious story about the roundtable thing y'all did, like a year in review. I'm sure you remember. And he was just talking about how frustrating it had to be for you, because you had all these points you had to get to in these reads and everything, and they wouldn't shut the fuck up the whole time.
Well, it's funny how sometimes things are portrayed on social media, but yes, somebody wants to get out of there and reel people in, right? And I probably have more television repetitions than anybody in the room. So these are my friends. But it's like, DC, man, can we fucking go? Can you shut your mouth for the outro so that I can actually get us out of here? Because you're taking me to Korean barbecue for lunch and you're delaying that process. And by the way, we called UFC 245 last night. So, yeah, I mean, at some point, I step up and try to expedite things. But that was one of the more fun days I've had in TV. So, didn't reel them in too much.
If you're a Boston guy and you bet as much as you do, how have you never been involved with any Barstool sports stuff? I
have actually. So when I was the program director, the title sounds better than it is, or was, I should say. But at 1510 The Zone, the Sporting News radio affiliate in Boston, at a time people could do a time buy on our radio station. So they did the Barstool Sports radio show. So I knew them briefly in 2003. So you would find few guys that are as happy for Dave Portnoy than me, just knowing all the effort that man put in, particularly back in those days, Yeah,
that's ground level.
I mean, dude, I remember once sending in my resume to try to write an article for Barstool Sports. I probably smoked too much weed to remember if I actually wrote one, but I remember trying to get an opportunity with those guys writing. So, yeah, love those guys. I've been on Pardon My Take several times, and, just couldn't have enough good things to say about all that they do and all that they have done.
Yeah, this is a rare occasion that I'm not wearing a fucking Barstool like Team Portnoy hoodie.
That is true.
That I wear almost every day.
Or Patriot. It's either with him. It's either Patriots hoodie or Barstool Sports hoodie.
That's it.
He's fucking ridiculous.
I use my my Goodell clown towel as a bib for my son.
Yeah, fuck that guy. That's something you want to get to?
Yes, I'm gonna be really mad at myself if I don't ask you to tell a story about your amazing 209 tattoo.
And it was the last time I ever picked a fight publicly. Obviously, I wasn't calling the big fights back then. And I thought it was a huge challenge for Nate, who presumably was in Cabo drinking tequila, to come and beat Conor McGregor, who was in training camp, But the backstory is that I always wanted to get a tattoo. I'm sort of a numbers guy. I never knew what tattoo to get. So the first tattoo bet was, I think, if Betch Correia beat Ronda Rousey, I would get a Brazilian flag, because at that time in my life, I had been in Brazil 20 times. It held a special place in my heart. And so that was the first one, but obviously Ronda took care of business. But with this one, I called Kenny Florian. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do this tattoo bet on the show today. He's like, you're fucking crazy. My wife, I went downstairs. What do you think of this? She's like, you're absolutely out of your mind. But I wanted the tattoo. And obviously, if Nate came through, it would be a great story. It became a not so great story, I guess, during one of the biggest fight weeks in UFC history, when it surfaced on Nate's radar, and he was not all that thrilled about it. Although I don't know that he was particularly bothered. I mean, it was pretty easy for us to bury the hatchet. But once it was on his radar, I was going to get the tattoo whether he won or lost. Yeah. So it made for a much better story that he obviously won the fight. And I can almost assure you it won't be the last tattoo bet I make. Now I have to get more creative. It can't be based upon the outcome. Nice. But I do hope that, well, I guess I don't really hope. I don't really care if people don't see the backdrop of the tattoo and they just want to see the disrespect. You know, maybe I need to steer clear of the 209, but I think I'm softening that border with every pass.
I remember when that was going on. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that whole thing play out.
Oh, well, no, it was not good there for a while, man. I mean, my bosses obviously weren't happy for a moment. I don't know that I've done anything to push pay-per-view more than that.
It was all pro wrestling, man.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I learned some stuff, but I don't regret 1 second of it, if I'm being honest.
All right, you ready to get in this goddamn topic?
Yeah, is Kenny Florian ever going to come back?
Oh. It's been a while, my man. I mean, certainly on the jiu-jitsu scene, but I think his MMA.
He's working over there at BattleBots, man. He's the face of BattleBot. I love that shit.
Yeah, it's good shit. All right, let's get into this topic. So we're going to do our Rushmore of broadcasters / commentators in any form. Doesn't have to be sports, just across the board. The way this will work, John, is Pepper will do his number 4, and then we'll discuss that. I'll do mine, and you'll do yours, and we just go around down to 1. So
love it.
Number 4 on your Rushmore of broadcasters, Pepper.
This might be unpopular to some people.
Okay.
But I like the fact that a lot of people hate him. And I personally don't really care. But I like his the reaction he gets on Twitter almost as much as his actual broadcasting. Joe Buck. Everybody says fuck Joe Buck. He hates the Patriots. He hates the Broncos. He hates the Bills. It's just he gets everybody up in a frenzy, and it makes me very happy.
I can relate. I mean, I can really relate. I mean, I'll never forget calling my first UFC show and going back to my hotel room in Nashville and opening up Twitter to death threats and everything else. I mean, I thought my world was ending. I mean, I still crushed a cheeseburger. I got over it, but yeah, man, I can relate, right? I hate everybody's favorite fighter, and, it hasn't been that bad for me of late, but there were certainly some early navigations for me. And, I mean, it just comes with the territory on his level, and, so I'm sure he would appreciate being in your Rushmore. No argument from me, of course.
And, I mean, the other thing that pushed him over the edge into my Rushmore was all the stuff he's been doing with the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
When he's commentating, like, dogs and shit.
Yeah, he's commentating people's everyday life. Like, they send him videos, and he commentates over it.
Yeah.
And I talked about it on here, but some porn site offered him a contract to commentate their porn. And they offered him $1 million to do commentary for their porn videos. And he turned it down on Twitter and was like, look, I've already spent $1 million on your website. You'd just be giving me my money back.
Yeah.
I was like, Joe Buck.
Yeah. He handled that well. I mean, that certainly was an interesting story. I mean, my wife even pointed that out to me. She's like, you see this, honey? I'm like, yeah, babe. I mean, what do you want me? You want me to ask Dana if he thinks it's a good idea?
Buck fucks, dude.
Buck fucks.
What's your number 4, Thomas?
My number 4. I didn't even know if y'all would count this as broadcaster, but it made sense in my head. I'm going with a radio broadcaster.
Okay.
And I'm going with Howard Stern.
Yes.
I've never been.
That. Yeah, well, I mean, he and Joe Rogan, and I would have said this well before the Spotify deal, but Howard Stern and Joe Rogan, who has done more in terms of making an impression on the average American male? And those guys are, I mean, I don't even know if there's anybody in the conversation with Howard and Joe in terms of that type of impact with men and women probably too.
Yeah, I've never even been an avid Howard Stern listener, but I'm 27. My entire life, he's always been in the fucking just in the universe
The
of
zeitgeist.
my life, the zeitgeist. Like it's always been Howard Stern. And then even now, if I don't, listen to the show or anything, if I have someone that I'm like, this interview fucking sucks, but they seem like a really interesting person, I'm gonna go see if they did a Howard Stern interview because I know he got it out of him. Like Brady doing it a few
Tom
weeks
Brady.
ago. That was a great interview.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
shit, I've been a fan for 20 years and didn't know half this stuff that he's opening up to Howard about.
Right. I mean, if this were something that I was putting in print, right? I mean, how do you really do a Rushmore of broadcasters and not include Howard Stern, right? I mean, not that I'm going to redo the exercise because for me, he wasn't like a big part of my life per se. It's all sports. I mean, I'm having a hard time not giving you guys honorable mentions, but how do you really do this exercise and not mention Howard Stern?
Hey, right before we do our number ones, let's knock honorable mentions out because
Sure.
we like to do that. What's your number 4 on your Rushmore?
So Jim Lampley, the longtime boxing play-by-play guy, and I came into this MMA space with a boxing background. I had Jim Lampley on my radio show, and it's not like we were friends, but I'll never forget the first time he actually said my name, and just hearing that iconic voice say my name, and I really became passionate about boxing. Thought at one time I would go the boxing play. It kind of ruined boxing for me, but that's another podcast. But Jim Lampley will always be a guy that I look up to. And not to say that I modeled myself after him, but I just liked a lot of what he did, getting in and out, just being such a smooth talker, a voice that'll give you chills, which is really there's no greater compliment you can pay a play-by-play guy, really, I think, because you guys are forced to listen to our voices more than anybody should have to be forced to listen to anybody's voice. I have an identical twin. You think I'm sick of the sound of my own voice, but Jim Lampley absolutely needs a spot on my my Rushmore.
Well, I think you just broke some scientific fucking news to me. Do twins have the same voice also?
So there are environmental factors, obviously, that change it, and those start very young, right? In terms of screaming the wrong way at the park or vocal lessons. My twin brother actually majored in musical theater. And for me, like I've now since voiced video games that just destroy my voice. So it doesn't sound as similar as it probably did back in the day, but all the mannerisms and the inflections are all the same, that if I put him on here, you guys probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Dr. John Anik. I just learned a goddamn lesson.
I don't know if that extends across all, like we are true monozygotic identical twins, like old school, born in 1978, one placenta. Like, there aren't that many twins that are truly that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up with some, and it was fucking infuriating. Because
dude, it's fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
It's like some people they're like, oh, there are two of you? God, I don't even really like the first, you.
Yeah. It's just so hard, especially whenever they get like angry that you mix them up. It's like, dude, don't fucking. He's like, oh, we got different haircuts. It's like, dude, no. Don't fucking get mad at me.
What's your number?
My number 3 on my Rushmore broadcaster commentators is Jon Anik.
Oh shit.
Oh gosh.
I had to put you on the list, man.
How about that? I mean, I should have picked a different category. Now I'm blushing over it.
Yeah, and I mean, you might have just picked your favorite host, but you are in my honorable mentions. You aren't on my Rushmore, but you're going to be eventually.
Yeah, no, if we didn't have him on, if we were doing it with a different guest, I would have said the same thing. I really do. Like, this might be a backhanded compliment, but it's almost like you keep yourself out of it and you just do the play-by-play. It's almost like, I mean, what else can you say? You really do a great job of taking yourself out of it and making it just about the fight that you're calling. Like I say, you don't say any dumb shit. You're just incredible. Thomas, what's your number?
You're not going to give him you're not going to give him the chance to accept his award you just gave him?
Oh, yeah, except for one, I guess, award-winning.
I mean, this is really exciting, right? I don't have an acceptance speech prepared, but no, I appreciate that because I really am not trying to be the story, right? Even when I push out a tweet about Francis Ngannou as a betting favorite, I'm just trying to invoke conversation with my opinion. I'm not trying to be the story. So I appreciate you saying that very much. And, I guess it sounds trite or like a throwaway line when guys like me say, oh, you're only as good as your last show. But like, I don't really know how else you're supposed to approach it, because if you don't think this business is cutthroat or my boss is cutthroat, then you're not paying attention. So I appreciate that sincerely. First time I've been on anyone's Mount Rushmore of anything in my life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
the one thing about your business that is scary, you could say one word and you could never work again. That's got to be terrifying.
Well, yeah. It's the truth, right? Because I can say one right now.
Yep.
But I guess I get interviewed so much that people say, "Oh, is anything off limits, or is it okay if I go here?" And I say, "You can literally ask me anything. It's up to me to not perjure myself."
Yeah.
You know. But yes, I mean, of course, any wayward utterance could be the end of you. Yeah.
Yep. Kyle Larson, was that the NASCAR driver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy that dropped.
Oh
the
yeah,
M-bomb.
right.
Insane.
All right, Thomas, what's your number 3 on your Rushmore
That's
of
it. You just
commentators?
bringing that up.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Howard Cosell to go on your Lampley train there. Just the Cosell shit. Not even. I don't know. See, now I'm doubting myself for having him.
Yeah.
Just because I don't even know if it's so much the commentary as it is just like the interactions with Ali over the years and like the shit outside of his actual work. It was so good. But I mean, the Monday Night Football stuff.
I mean, whenever you.
Yeah, I mean, how can you argue with these two Howards, right? And again, Thomas, right? That's your name,
shit.
Thomas. You're putting us in our place here with these Howards, Stern and Cosell, but you guys are only giving me 4 slots. But yeah, I mean, Howard Cosell is a brilliant choice, and certainly a guy who, even though he was slightly before my time, came across my radar several times, and obviously in combat sports, he left a major imprint. So that's a strong third selection. For me, number 3, I went with Joe Rogan, and there are a lot of reasons why. I probably stole a little bit of my thunder with the whole Emmy spiel earlier, but again, this guy has been charged with simplifying an inherently complicated sport for years and years without a blueprint. Like when we're calling a football game, I do the play and then I lay out and the analyst has 30 seconds, a play clock, even more, right, to explain what he needs to explain, and then it's back to play-by-play. But in mixed martial arts, there's a lot of gray area there. And Joe's navigated that in a 2-man booth and now a 3-man booth. And I don't know. For me, it's like I'm the mainstream sports fan that he is not. So I want to see him get that national spotlight. So Joe Rogan takes my 3rd slot on the Rushmore.
That's something I never really considered, the fact that he kind of wrote the book on calling MMA.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, in the early shows, you had Jim Brown doing it.
Yeah, which was great.
But yeah, he yeah. What's your number 2? I'm gonna get back to that later.
My number 2. If he's not on your list, then you're a fucking idiot. I have a feeling we're gonna have crossover right here.
Well, my next 2 are not Howard's, for the record. I didn't even realize I did that.
My number 2 is Mauro Ranallo.
He's an absolute legend. He has a truly special brain. I was so honored to meet him back in the day, and I still consider him a friend. I don't have enough good things to say about Mauro. He's certainly been an inspiration to me, even though stylistically, maybe we have our differences. We're more similar than people think. But again, I kind of pride myself on language and my ability to sort of flow, and nobody does it better than that guy. So
He's
and I'm
incredible.
not afraid to admit it.
He's so animated.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a while, he had a podcast with Bass Rutten that was.
I know. It bums me out that they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, the Rutten Ranello Hour or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember back in the day we did MMA Live on ESPN 2008, 2009, and I demanded he be on the show because I just thought he had such value even back then. So
yeah, and he does a lot of wrestling shit. I mean, he does like NXT, WWE type stuff.
Yeah, I don't participate in any of that nonsense.
Yeah, speaking of that, my number 2 is J.R. Jim Ross. Play-by-play commentator for Monday Night Raw for years, for AEW now. You a big pro wrestling guy, John? Because your face doesn't look like it.
No, I mean, so he has been very gracious professionally on Twitter, and I have a huge amount of respect for the legend JR. But no, I did not grow up a wrestling fan, so I haven't ingested a lot of his work. But I can understand why you'd reserve a slot for the guy, of course.
Yeah, his voice probably carries more nostalgia than anyone else I can think of.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, Thomas.
You don't know JR? Okay, well, that's wild. I understand not liking wrestling, but not knowing JR.
Sounds like a NASCAR driver.
I mean,
well, you're a young man, right? How old are you, my man?
27.
Yeah, so right. So I can understand maybe for some it's crazy, like when I see these fighters who are born in 2000. I'm like, oh God, man, you know, I'm a fucking fossil.
I couldn't imagine
So
doing something
2.
like that when I was 20 years old or 18, 19. And that's the thing about, especially too, like NBA players coming right out of high school. It's like, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I was a fucking idiot when I was 25.
Yeah.
I'm still an idiot, you know?
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that. So number 2 for me is Sean McDonough. I think anybody who's grown up a football fan in the U.S. probably knows the name Sean McDonough. I happen to work with the man briefly, so he rubbed off on me. I did a sports update on his show, and I said first ever, and he called me back in. He's like, it's redundant. Don't say first ever, right? It's first, right? It doesn't need to be first ever, and you hear it trotted out there all the time. And, you know, certain words like impactful, which is a made-up word, you know, something either has impact or it doesn't. Prideful actually is a word that has negative connotation. So McDonough certainly pushed me in the right direction when it came to certain things like that. But anyone who grew up in Boston, a Red Sox fan, I mean, that was the guy. That was the guy I wanted to be. If there's anybody that I have molded myself after, it's Sean McDonough. And when I say, you know, Jon Anik saying so long from Las Vegas, that's my tribute to Sean McDonough, who would always sign off that way. But just a legendary Boston-based broadcaster. His father, Will McDonough, you know, wrote for the Boston Globe. So that's the only local flavor really to my Mount Rushmore, but easily could have given Shawnee McDonough the number 1 slot tonight.
Well, on my number 1, I got some local flavor. Thomas, you're not going to know who any of these people are.
Yeah, and so. Not local at all to here.
Well, yeah, not here. But where I grew up in Georgia, the Braves radio broadcasters, Jim Powell and Don Sutton. I will turn on the radio broadcast and mute the TV and let them tell me what's going on while I'm watching it rather than, and no offense to the guys who do the TV broadcast. I love them
sure.
too. But they have such a good chemistry. As far as baseball broadcasters go, they're probably the most comedic broadcasters that I've ever heard. They have such a good relationship and they have so many inside jokes with each other. It's like, you know, whenever you listen to a podcast, it's almost like you're friends with those people after you listen to, you know, 50, 100 different episodes. And it's the same thing with them. I feel like if we sat down in a living room and drank some beers, it would, you know, be like we're best friends.
Well, and it's very common to have a relationship with a baseball broadcaster like that, doing 162 games. You listen to those guys with all that space they have to fill. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going baseball number 1 as well, and I can understand why locally those guys made a huge impression on you. That's nice. I see what you did there, sneaking 5 into your Rushmore with the A team there in Atlanta. I see that. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and throw fucking Tony Romo in there, too, and add to my list.
Oh.
Right.
My number 1's Joe Rogan. We talked enough. I mean, we talked a lot about him earlier. I love those old, like, you're talking about him kind of writing the book on MMA commentary. You can watch the videos of him schooling motherfuckers on, like, the Best Damn Sports Show period. Or even, I want to say he was on something, like, CNN related where they were comparing boxing to MMA, and he was, like, the only guy on there fighting for MMA.
I think it was on SportsCenter.
Yeah, it was something like that. And I want to. Was it like him and Mark Cuban?
No. It was a boxing guy. I don't remember exactly who it was, but yeah, he definitely held his own.
It might have been like Bob Arum or somebody.
It might have been.
I remember him just like humiliating because one, he talks for a living and many different platforms.
He's also a huge boxing fan. And he knows his shit.
Yeah, he's very hard to debate someone that educated and that well spoken in that kind of platform. It's like it's made for him.
Yeah. Right.
Those are some of my favorite videos.
Certainly not getting any argument from me. I mean, guy's truly a legend. You know, hopefully Joe shows up to his own UFC Hall of Fame induction ceremony. You know,
we'll see.
Have Joey Diaz.
Dude, that Spotify money might make it real hard to get on a plane.
So number 1 for me is Vin Scully. And even though I did not grow up in Los Angeles, that's a guy who would make someone like me get out of broadcasting because he's so good, right? So part of the reason I got out of print journalism is even though my copy was clean, I just felt like there were better writers out there. But that when we would start having conversations about sports, I could hold my own. I can't hold Vin Scully's jockstrap, you know? I mean, what an absolute legend of a broadcaster and a man and a can't believe how long he was able to do it at an elite level. You know, didn't lose his fastball in his 80th season or whatever the hell it was. So always a guy that I will look up to and aspire to be in some small way. Certainly what we do is very different. I know he did TV, but radio versus television, a sport that gives you all this dead space versus a sport that gives you none. But I mean, when I knew we were going to be doing this exercise, you know, it was Vin Scully on down every day of the week.
I mean, he might hold the world record for the most time speaking into a microphone. Because I mean, how many years did he work? It was something ridiculous, like 60 years or something.
Incredible, just incredible. The longevity is obviously, I think, a big part of his legacy, but that just doesn't even give credit to how good he is and still could be. I mean, my gosh, man, really just very humbling for a guy like me who is, you know, the quote unquote lead play-by-play voice of a sport, to hear that guy. It's like, oh shit, maybe I should fucking learn what stocks are, because I'm no Vince Scully, you know.
That's hilarious. All right, dude. Well, we fucking appreciate you. You're incredible.
Thank you so much for your time.
Do you know where Fight Island is?
Do you know?
I have a better idea than I did when I arrived in Jacksonville, but I can't go down that path. Do I look like I know?
You look like you fucking know.
Yeah,
you look more like you know than Felder and Rogan.
Paul Felder, I believed him when he was like, I have no idea. And he was like, I've been asking DC, I've been asking Rogan, I've been asking everybody, and nobody will tell me. You look like you fucking know.
Well, when you spoke with Paul, I probably knew less than I think I know now. But hey, reach out to me once it becomes official, and we'll see if my information's good.
Okay.
All right, man. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
Pleasure, guys. Great stuff. You guys too.